Hey folks, Pat, that Halloween movie collector, and back with another Kiss and Chat, and I have a special guest who I've been wanting to get on for a while and chat away with. It's Xander from Kiss Army Things podcast. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man. It's nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on. I love the name Kiss and Chat. I love the background too with the love gun. That's so cool. Love
Yeah,
it.
I borrowed it just, well, actually, Gene and Paul can't kill me anymore. Pop House will come after me.
Right. Yeah, but they're in Sweden, so hopefully they're off busy doing
Yeah.
something else.
By the time they get here, I'll have it down. The hell with them.
Exactly.
So I've been looking forward to
By the
chatting.
time it'll probably be like Live 2 or something next. So it'll be
Well,
something different.
I've been wanting to change that up. I was going to do, did I do Destroyer already? I forget if I did Destroyer. I'm going to do Destroyer, I'm going to mix it all up, but this was the one I actually was going to do a new one for this, and I just didn't have the time. But hey, this one always works. This was the first Kiss album I ever bought back in '78 when it came out.
Nice. It was the first vinyl record I ever bought for myself. I had CDs and things like that, but I walked into a record store and saw that on the wall for $8.99 or $7.99, all beat up. I was like, that's coming home with me. That was the first record I ever bought.
Yeah, that's great. Same thing here. I was at the Garden State Plaza in Paramus, New Jersey, 1977. My grandmother, my little Italian grandmother, about this tall, taking me there to buy me. I remember waiting online like it was yesterday to get that. I remember that. I remember the reason why, like I mentioned, I said it'd be great to have you on because you're the newer generation, and I'm the older generation. And I love all eras of it, but I thought it'd be cool to see how you got into it, how I got into it. I mean, I'm simple. I have a brother 6 years older than me. He came home in '75 with a borrowed copy from one of his friends in school of Alive. And I just remember like it was yesterday. He had it on the dining room table. And of course, older brother, don't touch my stuff. Of course, as soon as he leaves the room, I'm going to touch it. So I go over there, I'm looking at him like, what am I looking at here? You hold the Alive album, you're like, what the heck is this? So of course I took it upstairs and put it on. I'm like, wow, this is cool. And of course I got caught by him eventually. And to this day, I don't think he ever returned that album too. I think he still has it. That's how I got into it. And from there it was toys, the dolls, every time the albums came out. I remember going to 4 different places. Like I used to go to my grandparents, used to go to my aunts and uncles, getting all 4 solo albums that Christmas when they came out. Because I got one at home, I got one of my grandparents, I got one of my other aunt. So that's how we gathered them all back in the day. But so how did you get into it? Because you're much younger than me, and your knowledge of like the last, say, 20 years. I mean, I know a lot because I still follow it, like I said, but was much more entrenched in that era, like you're entrenched in this era, which I find fascinating. So that's why I love watching your podcast. So how did you get into it?
Well, I tell you what, even though, we are, from different eras and we may have some differences in our history, our beginnings are the exact same. And I feel like a lot of people in the Kiss world who are Kiss fans, there's always somebody passing it down to them, or there's always somebody introducing it to them. So for you, it was your older brother. For me, it was my parents, my mom and dad. They, grew up fans of rock and roll, heavy metal. And so when they were in their young adulthood, they loved going to concerts, and that was one thing that they shared. They went to the Kiss convention when the convention tour rolled around here in '95. They went to that and saw a show on the the reunion tour when it rolled around here to Market Square Arena. They actually came here twice to Market Square Arena, which is wild because they don't usually play the same venue twice within 2 months on the same tour, but they did for that show, for that tour at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. But by the time Psycho Circus tour came around, I was 3 years old, and I kind of knew what was going on now. They were going to concerts, and if they called the babysitter, I was like, oh, no, where are you going? And they said, we're going to see Kiss on the Psycho Circus tour. And I was like, no, you got to take me. And they're like, sorry, we, can't take a 3-year-old. So, which I get that, but I was still really upset because, it was that summer of '98, I think, when we discovered Kiss. We watched Kiss Extreme Close Up, which was very important because being born in the mid to late '90s, Kiss had been around for a while. You got a lot of learning to do, a lot of catching up. So Kiss Extreme Close Up was that for us, was Gene and Paul saying, hey, here's how the band started. Here's where we went. Here's where we are now. And with Psycho Circus, that's kind of how we knew that the original 4 had gotten back together. And I'll never forget seeing that CD cover, which, as we all know, has the 3D, the image moves, the carnival. So that was always the coolest because no other CD in the collection that we had did that. So that was just one more way Kiss always was, doing it better or just being a step up. And so, yeah, we didn't get to go see Kiss on the Psycho Circus tour, but our first time seeing Kiss live was in 2003 when they were co-headlining with Aerosmith.
Mhm.
Of course, this is after the farewell tour and everything. So when they did the farewell tour, I didn't know what farewell meant. I didn't know. I was too young to know what that word meant, but I learned very quickly, and I didn't like it. Kiss was going away, and I was like, I just got into the band, and they're already going away. So it was a bittersweet moment because I got to say that New Jersey show they did for the pay-per-view, The Last Kiss on the
Mhm.
farewell tour. That is still like one of my favorite Kiss performances to watch, just because again, the original four. It's the original four. So I know depending on what show you might have seen on the farewell tour, some of those shows were better than others, but it seemed like that New Jersey show, man, they were just on point. So that's what I think of when I think of the original four, and it was really, obviously bittersweet to see them leave, saying their farewell. But I was very happy when, all of a sudden, I didn't actually know about Eric Singer taking over for the Catman. We didn't have internet, so I didn't know that until later on. But seeing Peter and Tommy together, having Tommy in the band, seeing this new guy come in, it was like, oh, there might be some light at the end of the tunnel here. There's a new guy coming in, and he's obviously a little bit younger. He's moving a little bit quicker. It's like, what's happening here? And then we saw the VH1 Rock Honors with Eric Singer behind the kit. And it
Mhm.
was like, oh, this could be the. And again, they had already done Rock the Nation and all that, but we didn't know about that. So we're seeing, this new version of Kiss. Like, this could be the new Kiss. Here comes Sonic Boom. Here comes Monster. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, Monster and Sonic Boom is kind of my, 76, 77, where Kiss was, putting out new music and putting out new records. They were doing the big stage show with the Monster, and yeah, we got to go see some concerts throughout the years. I saw like 9 shows on this last end of the road tour just to really soak it all in. But yeah, I mean, I'm like you guys and everybody else. I love Kiss. I love being a Kiss fan. I love getting on here and talking with Kiss fans. That's why we started our podcast to, it was during the pandemic. So we really wanted to, reach out to other Kiss fans and kind of create
Mhm.
a community while we're all stuck at home. And it just kind of kept going. So yeah, I mean, everybody knows being a Kiss fan is super fun. And this is the reason why we get to talk and share our stories. So, yeah, thank you again for having me on. This is a lot of fun.
No, I'm glad you could. I mean, I know you're busy. Like, for those that don't know, can share the news that I just learned of today on your latest podcast, especially for the Kiss collectors out there. Feel free to share the news.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, obviously, you and I are both collectors, so we know the collector's mentality. We know how much this stuff means to us and it means to other people. Kiss collecting has been a big part of my life, and ever since I was, man, probably like 10, I shopped at kissmuseum.com. Well, this was back in the catalog days.
I
We
think
would
I
get
still have a
the
few catalogs too. I have to go look. I'm almost positive I have a
Oh
few.
yeah, they're so much fun to go through. We would sit and look through these, for days on end, trying to pick our Christmas list out in the wintertime. But so, and then of course when it became more of an online thing, I would just sit there on Kiss Museum and refresh the page. I loved seeing what new stuff was being added. Peter was always acquiring collections, but all good things must come to an end, or not. But in 2024, Peter Arquette decided to retire after 37 years of running the Kiss Museum, and was looking for someone to take over the Kiss Museum and put the same kind of love and passion into it as he did, but bring it into the modern era. And so I'm happy to say that I'm going to be the new person to take ownership of the business, relaunch the website. We're going to be buying Kiss collections together, traveling around the Midwest, and relaunching the website here this summer in 2025. And we're going to make sure that the Kiss Museum lives on, so that Kiss collectors, young and old, can have a place to buy the best Kiss collectibles you've seen, whether it's the new stuff, the old stuff. I mean, he's sold like stage used costume
Yeah.
pieces in the past. I mean, all the cool stuff. So I can confidently say that 50% of my Kiss collection has come from Kiss Museum in one way, shape, or form. So yeah, I would hate to see that die. And Peter agreed. So we're very happy to be able to relaunch the website, and take Kiss Museum forward into 2025 and beyond. So yeah, that was one thing I really wanted to share with you and with your audience, because this is, obviously very exciting. So yeah, I can't wait to see what happens next. But that is the big news: is that Kiss Museum is coming back. It's going to be relaunching under new ownership, but with Peter's assistance, and that's going to be me. So it's very
That's really
exciting.
great. I see. Like I said, it's about 20 years since I sold the big collection. The last thing I sold, which I hated like hell to sell because I had no room for it, was the Bally pinball machine.
Yeah.
I want to say I sold that. Here we go. Yeah, it's got to be a little over 20 years ago. And I remember buying some stuff from Kiss Museum, but they used to be like I used to go to all the conventions. So I grew up in northern New Jersey, so I went to all the Kiss conventions, the classic Kiss conventions that started in the late '80s. You know, they started in the Meadowlands in Harmon Cove. Then from there, they went to the Rothman Center. From the Rothman Center, they went to like several different hotels after that. So I always went to all the Kiss conventions. I got a lot of stuff back then because that was when people were selling a lot of the vintage stuff. And then it got to the point where nobody was selling it. They weren't letting any of it go. And there was a guy online that used to have used to be at the conventions too, but he had a huge website. God, what was his name? Frank Caraglio. That was his
That
name.
name sounds familiar.
He had a website like you wouldn't believe back then. That was the first one. Because my first, now I'm really dating myself here. When I got my first computer, which was probably when I started dating my wife, so I want to say 96. When I found my real first PC, like I had like Commodore 64s, like those type of things back in the 80s. But I got my first computer, and of course, what's the first thing I did? Search Kiss to see what comes up because I'm still collecting. And this guy came up, and I'm scrolling, and I'm like, and he had all the vintage stuff for sale, and my jaw dropped. I was like, oh my God. But he went away. I don't know whatever happened to him. I've asked people before, and they're like old timers, like, I don't know whatever happened to him. He had a huge, like sort of like Peter Arquette did, like a huge inventory of stuff that was on there, and it was just gone. And I bought a ton of stuff from him.
He must. I mean, he must still be around because that name does sound familiar. So he may have just, decided to move away from the dealer aspect of things. But that name sounds very familiar.
I'm
so
sure he knows who he is.
yeah.
He was at all the original Kiss conventions back in the day, so I'm sure he knows who he is. I'm just curious whatever happened to him. Maybe he bought all the stuff. Maybe Peter bought it all out when he just stopped doing it because it just all of a sudden the site was gone. And I was like, I used to go frequent it and look at it, and I'm like, where did everything go? So I bought a lot of stuff from him. He used to show up at Kiss conventions with like big Rubbermaid tubs filled with the Mego dolls in boxes. He used to have the most amazing inventory. He'd have like a dozen Kiss towels. He'd have 3 Kiss guitars that are still in boxes. He'd have the record. He would have so much stuff, and I would save up and spend a lot of money back then on what he had because he had some crazy stuff. And I'm like, where do you get all this stuff? It's like,
yeah, right.
People, and like much like yourself, you're going to be doing now. It's like American Pickers for Kiss.
That's exactly the way I was thinking about it. Yeah, just getting in a big old van and going picking up collections, coming back, piecing it out, and just getting to sift through and see what's inside. Yeah, that's kind of the fun. That's what's gonna be the fun of it, is getting to see all the cool stuff that people have collected. Because I've seen probably more things online than I have in person. You can see almost anything online, whether it's somebody showing it or selling it. But yeah, to see it, to have it, and to hold it. And one thing I wanted to show here, just because I mean, you watched our episode, so you probably most recent episode, so you probably saw one of the things that we got, but it was this lunchbox from '77, which
that's
again,
insane. Yeah,
that is,
go for a pretty penny.
Yeah, and it's in perfect condition, and of course, again, seeing it on a page is one thing, but having it and looking at each side, which has, I mean, it's 77 Kiss, so it's pretty quintessential. There's Ace right there, and then of course Peter right there. I got him upside down, but the best part about it, as we all know, is what's inside, and inside you have the thermos there, which is a big part of the whole thing. So yeah, this is one of those things that I was just so thrilled to see, especially that 1977 copyright right there. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about something that's been kept in really good condition. That a lot of the ones you see have been
they're beat up. They were used.
They were used. They were either rusted or they're dented. The paint's chipping off. But this one's really in nice condition. So yeah, that's going to be the fun of it, is getting to see all the preserved items, and then of course the stuff that we know, but then you get to see stuff that you never see. So I was at Peter's house when he reopened the site just to do a little test run, and he had on the website, he had Eric Carr's stage used floor drum from the Crazy Nights tour, the Chikara drum, on his website. I'm looking at that going, oh my gosh, that's insane. And I travel up to his house and boom, there it is right there in front of me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got the best job in the world now. I get to see all this really cool stuff. I mean, obviously it's going to go away. I'm going to buy it or I'm going to sell it and somebody else is going to have it, but it's mine for a moment. You know what I
You
mean?
get to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly. So, but yeah, Peter, he's such a great guy. And it's funny because, he doesn't have a podcast or a Facebook or anything like that. So you don't really see him unless you're at an expo or he's at an expo, a convention dealing. And I see him and I'm like, oh, well, I've seen this guy at least 3 or 4 times at the expos, back at the indie expos and the horror convention, Days of the Dead, that rolls through Indianapolis once a year. And so I was like, yeah, turns out I know him more than I thought. So that was kind of crazy. But yeah, he's been a swell guy. I know he's excited for the relaunch of the business. I am too. And I think we're going to be trying to be hitting the road here in the next few weeks to travel around the Midwest to pick up some KISS collections and get this site going. Because I know I was really sad to see KISS Museum go, but I'm really happy to see it open. Hopefully all the KISS fans and KISS collectors out there are as well. I know it's going to be a fun, wild ride. And I plan on bringing people in on that too. When Peter and I go around traveling, I want to try and, capture this, make a fun YouTube video out of it to show fans what it's like and just add some more fun to the KISS Army. Let people, bring them in on that experience. So yeah, I'm excited for all the cool things that are going to come.
Yeah, because you never know what's out there. It's just you find the rarest stuff in the weirdest spots. Because I remember years ago, back in my 20s, I worked for a cable company in northern New Jersey, and they used to, now just like I said, date myself. Yeah, they used to have like classifieds. So I had put an ad. They let me do it for free because I work for them, asking KISS collectibles, buying, and I got a bunch of posters. People just had stuff in their closets. I had an original lunchbox that I had used as a kid. That's the one I had. It was beat to hell because I used it going to school. And somebody's like, calls me up and says, hey, I got a lunchbox. I said, great. What condition is it? He's like, I got it as a gift years ago. He's like, and it's just been sitting in my closet if you're interested. So I was like, I went there. It's like that. It was like it just came off the shelf. New. It even had the insert, the paper insert, the thermos insert that goes inside. There's actually a piece of paper that goes in there.
Okay.
It had everything. And I was like, I'm like, how much you want for it? And like, sometimes you get a good deal because sometimes people don't know what they have. So you don't argue with them. You're not trying to rip them off, but you know how it is. Like I say, if they say, hey, I go, what do you want for it? They say this. I'm like, okay, thank you. Same thing I've done with this collection here, sometimes people come out with ridiculous amounts, which I'm sure you're going to encounter. It's going to be just like, what is that? Porn stars, where everybody comes in.
That is the exact analogy.
Yeah. Well, what's it worth? Well, it's worth 500. What do you want? I want 500. Well, I can't sell it for 500 and I will make no money. So you got to be realistic. So yeah, you're going to come. I feel for you because you're going to encounter a lot of that.
And I'm already been prepared for that. I mean, like you said, Pawn Stars is the perfect analogy. Somebody comes in for an item that's, $5,000. That's what it's worth. They want 5,000. He's like, well, I'm going to offer you 3 or 35 because it's going to sit here. I have to either package it, transport it, sell it. It's going to, whatever it is. Also, I have to pay my bills, pay electricity. So yeah, no, I'm totally prepared for that. I can handle that. I've worked retail pretty much not my whole adult life, but a lot of my adult life. So I'm very used to people and their shenanigans, if you will. But yeah, and Peter's already told me about that too. He goes, most of these deals don't work out because people either don't understand how businesses work or they say they want to sell and then they end up going, well, I'll sell you just this, but not this. Okay, now I'm just going to sell you this. Hey, maybe we should, do you really want to sell? You know what I mean? So I'm prepared for all the horror stories, but it's just because he's also said that you get to meet some great people who have some amazing stories. And that's what I'm interested in. You and I, a little bit before we got on, we're talking a little bit. And of course, this whole time we've been sharing some of our, early KISS stories. That to me is what it's mostly all about. And that's what you get with some of these items too, is, I look at this Sonic Boom gold record and I remember when my brother got it and because we love Sonic Boom and when Tommy, or excuse me, Eric came to the Indianapolis Kiss Expo, he lugged that thing around for 8 hours, stood in line for Eric to sign it. Did the same thing in 2012 for Tommy to sign it. And, I just love that story. And now, of course, he sold it to me when he moved out. But yeah, that's just, again, fun. There are no more Indianapolis Kiss Expos, not at least not right now. But those are the stories that you can always look to a piece in your collection, and you can always think back to the time, the place, the person, all that. And so that's what I'm looking to bring back, especially the in-person stuff. Because did you ever get to do the Kiss Mart that Peter Arquette did, where like he would
Yeah.
just bring merch? And yeah, and that hasn't been around in a while. And I'm like,
No,
that should be a
nothing.
thing. So no,
I love
nothing's
to see
stopping me from
something
doing
come back.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be great. I mean, yeah, there's lots of stuff I'm planning on doing, but I definitely want to see fans, getting together and doing more things like that, because the Kiss Expos in Indianapolis were always exciting to go to, and they stopped right at COVID. But it'd be great to see expos like that come back, and so maybe I'll be able to put something together in the future. But anyway, so did you ever go to any of the Indianapolis Kiss Expos up here? I know you went to the New Jersey ones. Did you ever go to the ones up here in Indy?
Never made it out of the state. I always went to all the ones in New Jersey because it was convenient. I was kind of spoiled.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "Oh, I just knew." Your stories of people that used to come in. I'm always watching. Three sides of the coin and Mark Cicchini.
Mm.
I remember seeing him at the conventions back in the day, and
Oh,
selling stuff.
okay.
I'm almost positive. I think I bought 1 or 2 T-shirts from him, if not bootleg concerts, because I used to buy all that stuff back then too. I used to go to, like I said, you went to the Days of the Dead. I started going to chill at theater, which was even before the Kiss conventions, and I just buy bootleg Kiss concerts there.
Oh,
And
bingo.
Kiss T-shirts, because that's all you could buy. And then when they started the Kiss conventions, a friend of mine that I grew up with, whose name is Pat too, we were both like the two Pats, just collected Kiss stuff and loved Kiss. So when they started the conventions, we used to go, and it was just like, wow. I mean, back then it was amazing because it was just all vintage stuff, because there was no reunion stuff, so it was nothing except all the old stuff. So imagine being in a room full of all that 70s stuff, and you would just like, you only had so much money to spend, and it was pricey
Unfortunately.
then. I mean, but now you can't even touch that stuff. I mean, when I sold my collection back in the day, I can't complain. I made a mint on it. I sold it all on eBay, so I pieced it all out.
Oh, nice. There you go.
So I made a lot because over the years, everything I had as a kid, I just replaced with mint items. So yeah, go on here. I actually, one of these days I can send you a bunch of pictures. I still have pictures of a lot of this stuff. And
Oh, cool.
I'm trying to think. I guess I'm trying to think of like the rarest thing I would have had. I mean, it was all the toy stuff. I didn't have any like custom stuff or like costume pieces. It was just all like the typical stuff, like the color forms, the rub and play, the guitar, the record player, the
Board game.
masters, the board game, all the way up to the pinball machine. I said I had the Valley pinball machine.
That's pretty cool, though. I mean, come on, pinball machine. Did it work? And did you play
It
it?
worked. Yeah,
Ah,
it was
that's
working
so
order.
cool.
And I walked into a collectible store in northern New Jersey one, because the guy used to get from time to time get Kiss stuff, and I walked in and he had a pinball machine there. I was like, and I was with my friend. He's like, "You want that?" I'm like, "Oh, I so want that."
Mm.
And at the time I was still living at home. Before I had moved out, and I told my parents. I said, "They're like, well, where are we putting a pinball machine in this house?" Because it wasn't a very big house. They're like, "We don't care if you buy it, but where are you putting it? You gonna put it in your room? There's no room. You'll be sleeping on it." So fortunately, I was able to buy it and keep it in my aunt and uncle, who lived 2 blocks down, in their garage. And then
Oh my
when
gosh.
shout out to my wife, who is a very patient woman, when our first apartment, we had a 2-bedroom apartment. The second apartment was like your room. It was all Kiss stuff, wall to wall with the pinball machine
Mm.
and
Mm.
display cases with everything. So yeah, go on here. I have a bunch of pictures of all that stuff, and it's
Oh, that's great.
and everybody's like, "Don't you miss it?" I said, "Yeah, I miss it, but it was the right thing at the time. Buying a house, starting a family. How do I justify spending, $300 on a pen when I got to go pay a mortgage, or, spend $2,000 on a toy guitar, when we want to go on a vacation?" It was the right thing. And everybody's like, "Well, when you get older, should you buy it back?" I said, "Unless I hit the lottery."
Right. Yeah. I was gonna say the price is kind of, yeah, back in the day. I remember, 10 years ago. Well, you can see the Marvel comic here.
Mhm.
I bought that when I was 20, just out of high school. paid probably 150 for it and was like $150 for a comic book.
For a
Jeez.
comic.
And of course, now you go on eBay and it's like people are trying to sell them for $400, $500. I'm like, geez, that's crazy. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know if you'll see that going for 400 or 500 on kissmuseum.com. Hopefully we can, work some prices out and bring that back down so it's a little more affordable. But yeah, on eBay you see some crazy stuff that's just like, oh my
Well,
gosh.
as a collector, because I have, like I said, if you ever like troll my channel on my Instagram, I have, and then huge, and I have a lot of rare like Halloween stuff. Like I have a 35 millimeter print, 4 canisters from 78 of the film that you would see in the theater. I got
Oh.
Halloween 2 prints. I got a bunch of rare stuff like that. And people are always like, well, I always get people, probably you're going to get this a lot too, especially now that people know you're out there doing this. People always ask me, Pat, what do you think this is worth? What do you think this is worth? I go, it's always worth what you think it's worth. I said, well, they search on all of it. And if you say an item is worth in reality $200, well, I see it on eBay. I see it on eBay for $1,000. I said, well, not for nothing. I can go pee in a box and put it up there for $1,000, but it doesn't mean it's worth $1,000. I said, you can put anything you want up there. You can put any price you want on there. It doesn't mean it's worth it. And that was the problem. That's the thing you're going to encounter, especially too. I always tell people, I'm like, don't go by me and don't go by eBay. I said, just find someplace in the middle. I said, anybody can put anything up there and put it up there for $10,000, $20,000. Doesn't mean it's worth that.
Yep,
You do your
that's
search,
very true.
you search, and you see what things sold for. That's where you go. And people don't understand that. Like, well, somebody's got. It's a fighting battle. I'm like, do what you got to do, and put it up there as long as you want. It's not going to sell.
Yeah, and that's always a thing. You could put something up there for a price that you think is reasonable, and then it just sits there for 6 months to a year, and you're like, okay, well, I guess it's too much. Drop the price down. Or you put something up for what you think is reasonable, it sells immediately. I should have made it this much higher. It's you could go back and forth doing that for a lifetime. Oh, it's too expensive. Oh, it should have been. It was too cheap. That's just part of the game for buyers and sellers. This is part of the game. Yeah. But money's definitely a big part of it, business and all that. But it's going to be really exciting getting a chance to meet a lot of great Kiss fans, see their collection, get their stories, and have a chance to obviously take something off of their hands, give them something for it because they've been collecting for their whole lives, but then also be able to turn around and give it to fans like me. I'm really excited to see the newer generation. Everybody always looks at me as like the younger fan, and I'm like, well, that's cool and all, but I'm 30, and I just met a 15-year-old at a Gene Simmons concert. When we went and saw Gene here a couple weeks ago, and it's like looking in a mirror or looking at a portal back in time, So here's a kid who's in his freshman year in high school, and he just saw Kiss however many times on the end of the road tour. It's like, well, he's, what's he going to be doing in 15 years when he's my age? You know what I mean? Like, I think he was telling me he has like one of Ace's water bottles that he caught from one of the shows, and it's like, you get all this, all these cool people with all these cool stories, all this cool stuff. And of course we have cool platforms like YouTube where we get to meet each other, talk about it and share it. It's just like, it's fantastic. So as far as I'm concerned, the future's bright for Kiss fans, the Kiss Army. It's wonderful.
Everybody's like, "What, you gonna ever run out of things to talk about with Kiss?" I'm like, no. I go, there's always something to talk about. We can always relive moments. I go, it's 50 years. It's over 50 years now. I said, I could tell you tons of stories of us dressing up as Kiss every year for Halloween. I mean, I remember wearing the College costumes. I had the Ace costume. I was always wanted to be Ace. That's why I play guitar. Ace was my first guitar hero. I wore the Collegeville costume for years. I can remember making out my Christmas list and asking for Kiss stuff every year, getting the Kiss albums, begging to see Kiss in the 70s, and nobody would take me. So I didn't see Kiss in the 70s in their original run with makeup. Same thing. My little Italian grandmother was going to take me, and my parents were like, no, you're not taking him to a Kiss concert.
Grandma's so cool. She bought you your Kiss album and then was also going to take you to see Kiss.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Grandma, man. I tell you what, that's awesome.
And she meant it too. She's like, I'll take him. She's like, they're like, no, you're not going to a Kiss concert with him. And then my brother's 6 years older, and he went to the Kiss. I remember he went to, what did he saw them on the Creatures tour. That was the first time he saw them. And I wanted to go. I was dying. I wanted to go so bad. And they're like, no, you're not going. So I didn't get to see Kiss until the Asylum tour. And then I didn't obviously get to see him in wearing makeup until the reunion tour. I went to 3 of the 4 nights at the Garden on the reunion tour because when they announced it, I'm like, I tried to go all 4 nights, but I couldn't get tickets.
When they announced it, yeah, heck yeah, we're going.
Yeah. I had friends calling me like, cause it was after we had graduated high school. They knew what a Kiss fan I was. Like, I bet you're going. I go 3 out of the 4. If I was able to get the 4th, I'd be 4 for 4.
Gosh, that's cool, man. What a great story.
And
That's
so I
awesome.
saw
Now,
them.
see, I never
Asylum.
got to. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, actually, no. I'm sorry. You said you saw the episodes. I don't want to repeat myself. I saw those. I said all the times they had seen them.
Oh no, you're all right. I was just going to say that I think it's cool that you got to see. I never got to see the original 4, even after the Second Coming. That was when I first got into the band. So seeing my first show was with Peter and Tommy, and then I've only seen Ace live either solo or with Frehley's Comet when they reunited in 2018 at the Kiss Expo, or when he was playing with Ace, Eric, Bob, and Bruce.
Mhm.
So I never got to see the original 4 in makeup, but yeah, I love hearing those stories because I mean it's the original 4. You know what I mean? It's incredible. So that was one thing I did miss, was seeing the original 4. But I know my parents did, and the show they saw at Psycho Circus, the live tracks ended up being recorded and put on a bonus edition of Psycho Circus, a couple of the tracks live. So I feel like I can relive it through that live recording. But yeah, I'm still blessed to have seen them 16 times. Nothing beats going to see a Kiss concert live. You know what I
Nope.
mean? That's it right there.
My biggest regret was not pulling the trigger like my friend Pat, the other Pat that I grew up with. He pulled the trigger and actually went and saw them at Tiger Stadium. He's like, "Let's go. It's going to be an event." And like the same thing at the time. I'm like, I was like, I just didn't wasn't financially in that spot to do it. And he went, and I'm like, oh, man, I should have went to that. That was one of my biggest regrets. I should have went to the Tiger Stadium show. And
Yeah,
I would get to the Kiss Cruise every year. He was always asking me every year, Kiss Cruise, Kiss Cruise. I'm like, I can. I have football with my son. I have gymnastics with my daughter. I have this with this and this and that. And
that's
he's
more important.
he's a bachelor, so he's like, yeah, like, you got to come. I'm like, can't do it. So I never made it to any of the Kiss Cruises. Would suck.
Yeah, no, that was one thing I never did either, was the Kiss cruises or a meet and greet. Unfortunately, I never got to meet a member of Kiss face to face in the makeup and the costume. Again, I know people who have. I love hearing the stories, seeing the pictures, but yeah, the Kiss cruise and the meet and greets were one thing that we didn't get to do. We did get to do the sound check experience they had offered on this last tour. We saw the sound check experience in Dayton, where they come out unmasked and play some songs that they don't play live in the set list, some nice 70s cuts. That was really cool. It's funny how I ended up paying more for that experience than I did for my actual ticket, and they're playing less songs with no makeup, no pyro. And it's funny how that works, but that's also the name of the game. So only certain people will do that. But yeah, I never could do the other stuff like the meet and greets and the Kiss cruises, although they did sound fun.
Yeah, I would love to have done it, but the same thing. The Kiss Cruises just weren't going to happen financially and time wise. And the meet and greets, I was just like, it'd be cool. I met Peter Chris. I met Ace Frehley several times. I got a good Ace Frehley story, and I don't know if you saw it on one of my other podcasts.
I
Gene and
did, but I'd
Paul,
love to
I
hear it at
was
some
close
point.
enough to them, but never face to face. Like went up and shook their hand. I was close enough to them, but yeah, I got to see them. It is what it is. The Ace story, I don't know if you've watched any of the podcasts I did. So it was a small club in North Bergen, New Jersey. It had to be, I want to say 95, maybe. It was right
Okay.
before everything blew up. It was like maybe that, probably closer to 94, because it was a little bit before that. It wasn't him and Peter Chris. It was when they were doing the Trouble Walking tour. And it was a small divey bar down the road from a couple of friends. And we're there, and he was okay, but he was still drinking at that time, so he was really sloppy. So we're sitting there. He gets done, and we're sitting at the bar, me and my friend Mark, and we're hanging out. And this guy keeps bumping into me, and I'm like, what the hell, and I'm trying to be nice, you're at a bar. I'm like, I'm not going to get in a fight. And boom, he's bumping into me again. Turn around, it was Ace, completely drunk. He's like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm like, "Whoa, like, look who it is!" And he couldn't even put two syllables together. He was
Oh man,
It was
hammered.
hysterical. We were hanging out with him, drinking with him, and it was hysterical because I'm like ready to turn around, like, who the hell keeps bumping into me? I turn around, I'm like, oh, look who it is.
The one and only.
That was the first time I met him. That was hysterical.
Oh man, that's a funny story. I couldn't imagine. I have a similar story, but not quite as crazy as that. But we were at an expo. This is probably 2014, and Paul Stanley had just been announced as a special guest last minute because he was doing his book signing tour for Face the Music. And so we were going to try and go to another signing to meet Paul, but ended up going to the Kiss Expo last minute. And so, of course, we got tickets last minute. We're way in the back of the line. So we're standing there for hours and trying to wait to get to meet Paul. And they had tables outside where you could, obviously, while you were waiting, you could shop and look at all this stuff. And there was like 2 big bins of vinyl, maybe even more than that. There was just bins of vinyl. And I could tell that it was like the good vinyl. You can tell by the sleeves when they're not yellow and wrinkled, when they're real transparent and clear. Oh, you know, some good stuff's in there. So I'm like, man, I got to get in there. I had started collecting vinyl maybe 4 or 5 years prior. And so I'm really wanting to look into this vinyl. And there's this guy standing in front of it who is just taking his sweet time. And I get it. You know, you're wanting to look and see what's there, but like there's other people there, dude. Come on. So, and he's taking out like Alive 3 and Revenge and looking at it up and down back. And I'm like, dude, okay, come on. So I'm like this close to tapping him on the shoulder and saying, hey, you want to like take, you know, let's take some turns here. I go to tap the guy. It's Bruce Kulick. I'm like, ooh, okay, never mind. He's looking at Alive 3 and Revenge because that's his lineup. So I was like, you take your sweet time, buddy. I'm just going to go around you and I'll meet Paul when I meet Paul. But that was always funny to me because I'm like, hey, guy, what's the big idea? And it's freaking my favorite guitar player in Kiss standing in front of me. So it's like, oh, I'll let him look through vinyl. I don't care. That was always funny to me, though. So not quite as crazy, but still kind of funny where you're like, who in the world do you think you – oh, okay, gotcha. You're him.
And he was great because he used to go to all the expos back in the day. Both him and Eric, they would always be there just walking around, chatting. And those days – were back in the days where nobody charged you for autographs. Like if you bought something, they would sign it for you until somebody said, hey, wait a second, I can charge you for the autograph too, right? They learned from all the sports figures. And now you're not getting that, you're not getting free autographs at all. You're going to pay for it. But back in the day, if you bought something from them, you said, oh, can you sign this? They just signed it for you. There was no issue. But now it's big money.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, even when I was going to the expos at first, you know, it was like you could still pay $20 to get in the event and then buy an item from Eric's table for 25 and then he would sign it for you. You know, it's like, oh, $50. I've got $50. But now it's like you got to pay $100 just to get in. You got to pay your ticket to meet them. Then you got to pay your ticket to get your autograph and your photo. It's like there's just all these paywalls. So hopefully the days of, you know, not that stuff comes back, because at a certain point you're just pricing out the average fan. You know, you're spending more in your ticket, your travel, and your hotel than you are at the actual event. And it's like, what's even the point, you know?
It's getting that way now because I go to all because, you know, I used to go to all the Kiss conventions, even when I wasn't really collecting anymore. I would just go see if there was something cool. I'd get it. I mean, I remember taking my son in a stroller. He was still a baby, and I would just take him because, of course, he had Kiss T-shirts on and everything. And he used to like the. I think he still has a bunch of them. He used to like all the cars. The Johnny
Lightning, Johnny Lightning.
So he had a bunch of them. I think he probably still has them up in his room. He's 23 now, and he's just graduated college, so that's why the house is quiet except for 2 dogs. The kids are so I used to do that all the time, and then like I said, it was affordable. It was like $20 a ticket to get in, so I'd get 2 tickets, take my son. But I also go to horror conventions because I collect all this stuff. So horror conventions back in the day, like Chiller Theater or even Monster Mania, which are on the East Coast here, $20 to get in, and then you get autograph if you bought something like a picture or whatever. It was like $20. Now, I mean, people are like a couple $100 for a signature, and like, guys, you do realize at some point nobody's going to come here anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I'm to the point now where people tell me what they pay for certain autographs. I'm not a big autograph guy. Only certain things within the Halloween franchise, and I'm like, not going to do it. It's just way too much money. Sorry. Even concerts too. Concerts are crazy now. I mean, Kiss, you know, was never really all that bad. I mean, considering what you're getting in a Kiss show, I mean, you're not just getting a bunch of guys up there in a T-shirt and jeans.
Bingo.
You're getting a show. It's not a concert. It's a show. So it was worth the money. But what people charge these days for concerts, I've become that old guy that just goes to like shed shows, like amphitheater shows now. You get lawn 100%. Seats. I just go to the lawn. If there's lawn seats, I'm in. Or theater shows like Gene. Like I went to Gene Simmons, you know, me and my brother went. I'll go to stuff like that, but like the big concerts now, it's too expensive. I mean, these these people spending $5,000-$6,000. What are you doing? Taking out a home equity loan to go to a concert? Who's
Oh
got
yeah,
like
yeah.
$10,000 just laying around?
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous, and I'm with you too. I almost feel like that old guy too. I mean, going to see Kiss, it was like you could see Kiss for $100 and get really good, pretty decent seats. Of course, you were going to be paying like upwards of 1,000 if you were in the front, getting the meet and greet and all that stuff. But if you just wanted to sit, I remember on the Freedom to Rock tour 2016, tickets were I think 150 for like the 20th row, which was very close. We were right
Mhm.
next to Paul's B stage and we were like right on with the regular stage. So it was great. We bought 2 tickets to 2 shows. We said, "Oh, that's amazing. 150, we'll pay 300 and we'll go see 2 shows 10 days apart," because that was really, really good. And now $100 is like nosebleed tickets.
If
And
you're
it's like,
lucky.
if you're lucky, yeah. And it's like, what band? Who do you think? It's like, who do you think you are? You know what I mean? That's ridiculous. Again, at the Kiss show, you're seeing a legendary band putting on a legendary show, a band whose only competition is themselves yesterday. So they keep always doing things bigger and better. Here they are on the end of the road with their huge show. It's like, yeah, I'll pay $100. I think the most we paid was actually 350 for Down on Front, right dead center. That was the first show we saw in the last tour, and it was like, this is the last tour, go big or go home. But Joe Schmo and his band, I'm not paying $150 to see them all the way in the back where I'm looking at the screen most of the time. It's not worth it. So I'm like
Mhm.
you. I prefer to go see. There's an up and coming band. Well, now we saw them right at they're pretty much over now. As far as like being well known, and it's called The Warning. Have you heard of The Warning?
Sounds
They're
familiar.
they're sisters from Mexico. They're a hard rock band, great music. Their last 2 albums are just fantastic. It's the kind of stuff that you want to
Very cool.
hear when it comes to rock and roll. Their last 2 albums, Error and Keep Me Fed, just came out. If you want a really good song, I would listen to Hell You Call a Dream. That's one of their newer ones. But yeah, that's just really good rock. We saw them for it was a crowd of 200 people at some random location up in Indianapolis a couple years ago. And then right after that, they were on MTV at the VMAs or whatever. And now they're doing larger shows. You can tell by their image and their look is more professional now. I mean, they really hit it big time. So we got to see them kind of on the verge of that when they were still playing shows for 200 people in what could be considered a dive bar. But that stuff to me is more fun now, just because, like you said, you go to these big shows, you're paying $9 for a beer. I don't drink beer, but you're paying all this money for a beer, a hot dog, your ticket, and you're broke before you even see the band
Mhm.
come out on stage. And it's just like, yeah, it's not worth it. Not worth it as much. Not unless you're a band like Kiss doing something like that. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's why
I'm
I was
with you,
thinking.
man.
I was there, I I didn't go. I had the opportunity to go there the last show at the Garden because I only live about an hour and a half I actually do a lot of work in Manhattan, but so I'm not far from it, and I was gonna go. My wife's like, "Why don't you just go?" And I looked at even the nosebleeds were like a couple $100, and I'm like I'm like and I already ordered it on pay-per-view, so I just sat there and watched this. You know what? I've seen them so
Yeah.
many times. I'm content. So I just watched it on pay-per-view, which they were good,
It
but
was
what
fine.
but the show itself, as far as being filmed, it's like, do these guys know who Kiss is? Like
No.
Gene's ready to blow fire. They're over here.
Yeah, they're
They
way in
didn't
the
show.
back. Oh yeah.
The cameraman, I go, who are these cameramen? They were missing all the stuff. I'm like, and that was my
Yeah, it
biggest complaint
was.
about it. I mean, everybody was expecting like this big thing, which I mean, they weren't going to bring out a cavalcade of people. But my biggest thing
No.
about that concert, it sounded great, but like, who were the cameramen? It's like they had no idea who Kiss was. They were just every time you would think they should have been focused on something, they were over here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was my
There
biggest
was
complaint.
a similar experience, I think. Maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I swear when Kiss did the AFL appearance too, right towards the end, they were in Australia doing their Super Bowl, and Kiss was the big act, and there was a big shot, a big moment, and the camera just cuts away, and you're like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah,
Surely you had to have rehearsed that. Surely, Gene and Paul are like, "You have to get this. When I smash the guitar, you better be up front. When I'm spitting blood or breathing fire, you better be up front." So yeah, that last show, I felt really bad for Kiss because I knew there was going to be so much pressure on them that no matter what they did, there was going to be no way they could live up with it. So I think we even said on our show, like, they're going to come out and do exactly what they've been doing this whole time. We saw them in Rosemont a few nights before that, and that was the
mhm,
best Kiss concert I've ever seen in my life. And then I saw it again on pay-per-view. So, they were just doing the Kiss show. So none of that really surprised me. But yeah, I had a lot of issues with just the production of the pay-per-view. The pre-show
Yeah,
wasn't really that great. The best part about the pre-show for me was having Eric and Tommy sitting down, because they were the only ones
right.
who actually mentioned the original band, the mentioned Peter and Ace, and talked about the beginning. Gene and Paul did all right, but they just go through their usual spiel. Yeah, so again, I kind of knew most of that going in, but I'm curious. We're kind of like just railing off now. I want to know, what were your thoughts about the avatars? Is that something that you're like, oh, that could be fun, or are you like, oh, you just killed 50 years of legacy right there?
No, I'm not. There's people that just like to hate just to hate. I would watch it, but I wouldn't go. I don't think, unless like it was like some crazy arena show to get me there to see it. Like if like they were tailor made for the Sphere out in Las Vegas. Like if it was like this all encompassing thing where it's like all around you, which Psycho Circus was supposed to be like that. The 3D did kind of work. It wasn't so bad. When you went to the show,
Yeah.
it did work. It was pretty cool in certain spots. They tell you to put your glasses on, and you see Ace with this guitar out at you and stuff. So it did work. So if they get this all encompassing thing and it's not crazy expensive, I said on my thing, I'll go check it out. I have no problem with that. I go, I would have been cool with the idea of them doing a reality show where they get replaced, basically to do an official tribute band.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking was going to
I
happen,
would,
because they
that'd be
said
great.
something like that in the past. I was like, okay, I can see that. Get to know the guys. Maybe we can vote
Yeah.
like AI, like American Idol or something. We can vote on the guys so that we know them, and they're Kiss fans, so we get their history. And I thought that would have been a really cool thing to do too. But I think maybe they didn't do that, because then you're relying on. I mean, you're still relying on four guys to get along, and not, oh, I'm the new Paul Stanley. I'll do whatever I want, act however I want. So I wonder if maybe they just decided to go with the avatars because there's longevity, because they can't
Mhm.
die. But also, yeah, they're invincible, immortal. Which I feel bad, because obviously when you go see a Mr. Speed show, which is great because they're going to be at
Yeah.
the Vegas event this year in makeup, like they're representing that makeup experience,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
they're
So
great.
tribute bands would be fine. If you want to give me an officially endorsed one, I've seen
Yeah.
dozens of Kiss tribute bands, and it's just fun to go there and relive it. So if you actually had a real one that's endorsed by the band and had the band behind it, so you're gonna get everything, I'd be all for that. I mean, as long as they weren't, charging like real Kiss prices, which I don't think they would do. As long as it was reasonable, I'd be like, I'm sure to be playing theaters or sheds or whatever. I'm like, I'm all about that, because at least you get to go see it live, and you just get to see a show.
Yeah, and plus, they're doing the whole unmasked era with Eric Carr, so that's one thing too, where it's like, you could do different eras, and
Right.
and that's what I'm kind of hoping they do with, because again, they're not bound by anything anymore. They can do anything they want now with this digital stuff. So I really hope that we get like an all-encompassing Kiss experience. I mean, they were playing "God Gave Rock and Roll to You," which was a non-makeup song, so that could be really cool. There's all kinds of different tracks they could do, and all kinds of different looks. I really liked the look that they gave the spaceman. He had that like long headband,
Mhm.
very Jimi Hendrix, almost reminded me of like Kenshi from Mortal Kombat, one of the video games I used to play when I was growing up. And I was like, no, that's really cool. Where did they come up with that look? So, I truly, I'm interested in seeing what they could do. I definitely think it's going to be one of those events that the normal person is going to be priced out. The way it sounds is like they're going to try and introduce this 5D experience. They haven't actually came out and said that, but I don't know what the hell 4D is. We skipped 4D, but apparently 5D is where you have like, you know, sound and smells. I don't think they're gonna have smells, but like when fire goes off, you're gonna feel heat, and then there's gonna be
Right.
wind, and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh, that could be really interesting. I mean, I'm not sure how they're gonna incorporate that into a Kiss concert, but they could do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I think I'm kind of excited to see what they do. I know it wasn't everybody's first choice, but to be honest, that was the only part of that last concert that got me excited, because we're all waiting for something to happen, whether it's Peter and Ace or Bruce, or they're playing this song or that song. Daphne and I were just holding on to each other, like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And as soon as those figures lifted off the ground, I was like, oh, we're going into the future here. Like they're doing this now. And so for me, it immediately clicked, and I was kind of not like, so I wasn't surprised or anything, but it was kind of jarring to see that level of disconnect from fans where it was like, hey, there is a future. And it's like, oh, they just killed 50 years of legacy. And I was like, ooh, interesting, sort of, which there always is in the land of Kiss, this these big divides and things. But what an interesting conversation that was. But I'm interested to see what it looks like and what it boils down to, even though I might have to save up an arm and a leg to see it. But who knows? We'll
Yeah,
see.
as long as it's not crazy expensive. I mean, everybody, because I've had tons of people say, "What Pat, what do you think about these avatars?" I go, I go,
We don't know yet.
I'm not a negative person. I'm like, give it a shot. It could be a lot of fun. And if you don't like it, then so be it. Then it's not your thing. But everybody's just
Yeah.
pissing all over it. No, it's a horrible thing. It's an insult to the fans. Like, well, how's it an insult to the fans? Do you want them to just
They
completely?
don't have to.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pack up, walk away. Nothing else. At least you're gonna get something.
That's what I'm saying, because that's what it was weird. I was like, surely I mean, obviously there was nothing to expect, but Kiss never just does the one thing. They always say they're going to do something, and there's always something else happening around that, behind that. There was the New York City takeover. That
Mhm.
was so cool. That was the before, right? Then you have the concert. It's like you can't just say, "All right, bye." And it was, no,
Yeah,
one moment led right. They went and faded into the smoke, and then emerging from the fog was the four avatars, and it's the new era. And I was like, wow, I wonder how long they had that up their sleeve.
and they
Turns
give
out
you
it's
a
been a
breather.
while.
You still got another 2 years, so they're really letting it simmer.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
instead of just throwing it right out there, it's like guys, relax. It's not this. This. Paul Stanley said, "This isn't the finished product. This is just what we're starting with. We just wanted to
yeah,
give you a
yeah.
taste of what's going to happen. Relax."
And
I'm
plus, at
in.
least at least now because you got some folks who were literally so angry. Oh, I'm done listening to Kiss. I'm selling my Kiss stuff. Good, great. At least now you know. At least you're not waiting around with bated breath for 2 years only for you to find out. I don't care about this. At least now you know. Hey, we're doing avatars on board. Fine. If not, okay, fine. What did Paul say? If you hate us, God love you. If you love us, that's great too. But if you're in the middle, get out. That's one of my favorite Paul Stanley quotes from Kiss Me or Kiss Extreme Close Up, and I think it's
Mhm.
relevant today. Love it or hate it, it doesn't matter. It's what's going to happen, and I'm really excited to see what the future of Kiss holds. I know some fans are kind of whatever about it. I get that. I'm just along for the ride like everybody else.
Yeah, I'm there too. I just it's funny because my friends, I had a few friends over last weekend from Memorial Day, and they're big horror guys, and they're here, and like, so we're sitting here on the computer, and we did a live stream last week, and I had like YouTube up here, and they're like, "Oh my god!" I go, "What?" They're like, "Because it's all Kiss podcasts, like a horror, and it's all Kiss stuff. Like, you really do
Mm,
watch all this Kiss stuff?" Still, I said, "I go, yeah." I go, Kiss fan longer than I was into horror. I said they sort of coincided with each other. I
yep.
said, but yeah, I said, just because I don't have a room full of Kiss stuff like I used to, I'm still listening to Kiss constantly. It's never going away. I mean, I've been told seeing Gene. Yeah, I called my brother. I said, "Hey, you want to go see Gene Simmons?" He goes, "Where's he playing?" I go, 10 minutes from your house. You want to go? He didn't realize it was 10 minutes from his house at Montclair in but that was the Wellmont Theater.
Was that this year?
Yeah, that was the Gene. It was about a month ago, I guess. We went.
Yeah, yeah. We went to saw the show in Beaver Dam. That's cool that you got to see him this year too. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we had a
Yeah.
great time. I thought it was awesome. I missed his first show when he was here in 2017. His
Hmm.
first tour, I missed it. So I was happy to see him back on tour, getting out there playing shows and just having fun, doing whatever he wanted. I mean, he was up there having probably more fun doing his show than he was in Kiss, doing the same rehearsed thing every night. He was up there having a good old time.
I was at the show, if you saw it, where Tommy James was there. Tommy James from the Shondells.
Oh yes,
I was
that
at that
okay. I
show.
did see
And she
that.
said, "Oh, we have a celebrity in the audience," and it's like, "Oh, Tommy James." They're like, "Tommy James?" He was right down in front. They
That's
started playing
badass.
Moni Moni, and like trying
Yeah.
to figure out how to play it, and they're all looking at each other. Next thing you know, he came up and started singing. I'm like, "Well, yeah, that's something you're not going to see ever again."
What a moment. Yeah, see that to me is rock and roll. Those impromptu moments doing things like that. Yeah, I know and I get it where some folks are like, "All right, I wish he would just play songs as opposed to, doing all these different fan interactions." But if you're those fans, getting up on stage, that's really cool. A really unique experience. I've always said, Gene is planting seeds when he does that. When he brings those kids on stage, those kids, when Gene's long gone, those kids are going to say, I was on stage with Gene Simmons singing Charisma. I was on stage with Gene singing I Love It Loud, whatever it was, you know. That's cool stuff that nobody else gets to do. And no other kid I know I didn't get to do that when I was a kid, be on stage with Gene. And I saw, you know, Paul bringing kids on stage on the end of the road tour, you know, little girl with a star in her face, whatever, you know, that was really cool. So I love those moments. And I think that Gene and Paul have done a lot for the future of the Kiss Army when it comes to that stuff. And Gene's continuing to do that whenever he brings fans on stage. I know it bothers some people, but I just look at it, I'm like, man, that's so cool. And he's playing all these fun songs too.
My only thing was I was going there more so hoping he was going to do a lot more deeper cuts. And everybody,
Right.
you know, I brought it up on the when I did my review, and some people like, well, I'm a guitar player. I've played in cover bands for 25, 30 years. I still play in a cover band. And I understand, like, say a band like Kiss gets booked into a casino. Well, they have to play a lot of the hits because they want bring people in. People want to hear the hits. They want to hear the songs they're familiar with. I go, but when Gene was touring, it was more about, I mean, everybody that was there was a Kiss diehard fan. They weren't people just coming in off the streets to just hear music. They were diehard Kiss fans. And in between when he was doing all the talking and you have like a 10, maybe 15-minute span where nothing was being played, there were guys heckling. Like, hey, this isn't a variety show. We came here to see you play songs, and he heard it too. Like somebody yelled Plastic Caster. If you find the show, they started playing Plastic Caster, which it wasn't in their set list. He actually started playing it. They didn't play it all the way through. They played it most of the way. So if you look up the Wellmont Theater, I don't know. I've meant to go back and listen to hear if you can hear people, because there's a point in the show where some young kid was there, and he came up on stage and they were promoting his band or something. Like, I don't know if it was like paid promotion. And people were like, well, come on, you could be right now. You could be playing Larger Than Life right now. Or you could be playing,
yeah, true.
You could be playing, you know, Sweet Pain or Almost Human. Do that, you know?
Yeah.
So that was the thing. A lot of people like, it was a lot of like pulling people up. That's cool. I get it, especially the kids. But it was a lot of that. And it was a lot of stopping and starting. And guys, you know, you get into it. It's like when you're at a show, especially a Kiss show, boom, the adrenaline's running. So if you get us up here, hey, then you waste 10, 15 minutes. Then you get us back, hey, do you bring us back down? The guys, people get annoyed.
Yeah. It didn't seem like they were taking the time before each show to like learn the layout of the venue. He would ask people to come on, but then he didn't know where the fans were supposed to go. And so they're trying to find out, okay, we'll go over here and you go over there and we'll lift you up. And it's like, you know, they should have taken more time to coordinate that stuff and figure out so that you can keep it structured. Because like you said, you know, they could definitely play a few more songs. Almost Human would have been a great one to hear. And Unholy would have been a fantastic one. I agree with some folks where I think that he should start out the show with Radioactive. He already has the really cool intro.
I'm like, yes, he's gonna play it. Then all of a sudden, he went to Deuce, which is great. I mean, I'm happy to hear Deuce, but I was like, oh, you're gonna play Radioactive. I mean, he could have played a bunch of stuff off the first album. He could do like Living in Sin or, you know, Burning with Fever, just anything, just something out of the blue that's like really, really, really deep. I mean, Charisma was awesome that he did that. But if he would have, if he would have pulled out like Almost Human, forget it. People would have lost their. I would have lost my shit. Pardon my French. I would have been like, oh my god, finally.
Did you play Spit?
He played Spit, which was good. That was cool. Yeah. He pulled that out and, you know, into A Whole Lot of Love and then back into Spit. That was cool.
I freaked out on Spit. That one was cool.
Yeah, that was definitely cool. I mean, I got to see it. I saw them twice on the Revenge tour, so I got to see Unholy live. So that was a great tour. I mean, that was. So I think when I did my review, the tour that was kind of a snooze fest was Crazy Nights. It was kind of boring, which is hard to believe, but it was very synthy because at the time that's what was popular, and it was just it was they didn't play a lot. I don't know. It was just everybody I've talked to said the same thing. Like, yeah, it really was kind of like a boring set that they had going, and I mean, it wasn't the worst thing. It was still good. I was seeing Kiss. It was great.
Yeah.
Like if people say like, what's your favorite ones? I go, Hot in the Shade was awesome. When I went there, I saw them twice. I went there that night with my friend and they opened up with I Stole Your Love. I was like, what? Huh?
What year is this?
77 again?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that
That's
was a
awesome.
great tour. So I saw them twice on that. I saw them twice on Revenge. Because where I grew up in northern New Jersey, you had the Meadowlands Arena, which is right here. And then if you were brave enough to drive an hour and a half, you would go to Nassau Coliseum on Long Island, and they used to play them back to back.
Oh, perfect.
So I would just go from here to there, or once in a while they'd play the Garden.
Yeah.
So I was kind of spoiled in that respect.
Yeah, I kind of feel you. I remember getting to see two shows on the Freedom to Rock tour. We went and saw them in Fort Wayne and Dayton, and getting to go, just a couple hours away, 10 days apart was, you
Mhm.
felt like the king of the world getting to see two Kiss shows back to back. It was great. And then on the end of the road tour, we saw the show. It was in Cincinnati, August 29th, 2019, and then we saw them 2 nights later on the very next show in Indianapolis, and it was like, oh man, this is the last tour. This is it. You gotta go big or go home, right? So yeah, that was always the best, was getting to see, it's packing in as many shows as you can. Those are days I'm gonna miss for sure, is getting to see Kiss shows. How interested are you in this Vegas event that's coming up?
I've never been to Vegas, and I would love to go, but I have 2 trips planned that month, and then they announced that. I'm like, "Ugh, now I can't go," because I'm a big Halloween fan. I'm going in New York City, in Queens, New York. John Carpenter, the director, is playing live, and he's playing all his music from his movies. And I got the meet and greet, so I'm going to go meet him, and I'm staying there for the weekend. A friend of mine's coming to hang out with me, and then the following weekend, me and my brother, cousins, we're all flying to Denver to go watch the Broncos play the Giants because we're all Giants fans.
Oh, okay.
So I'll spend the weekend out there, and then they announced that, and I'm like, seriously?
Of course, guys. Why does it have to be even November?
I'm like, come on, I would have so went to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be great. It's one, again, it falls in that meet and greet Kiss Cruise category where financially I can't pull that off, but that's going to be one thing that's going to be fun to watch and see what they pull off there, because I mean, 3 days, you have a lot of room to do a lot of really cool stuff, whether that's, just them playing, I mean, the avatars, and they keep touting this End of the Road documentary. There's all kinds of stuff they could do at this Vegas event, and I can't wait to see what happens. But yeah, that to me is what we need, but maybe on a more affordable scale, is getting fans back together and doing these big, large scale expos and things like that. But it's nice to see that they're going to honor Bill Starkey and Jay Evans, who started the Kiss Army. They're
Yep.
inviting them out there. I don't know in what capacity they're going to be featured, if there's going to be like a panel for them, or if they're just going to be there walking around. But the fact that they've invited them there, they've acknowledged them, yeah, it's really special, really important. So yeah, I think there's going to be lots of cool things to look forward to post End of the Road tour. Um, Obviously, whether it's Kiss in Vegas, or with the Kiss Museum relaunching, whether it's the fans or the band, there's no shortage of fun happening in the Kiss Army.
Lots of Kiss to come. I tell everybody, I said, just like people say to me, well, the last Halloween movie was 2 years ago. Is it over with? I said, no. This is the same way. It's just going to keep going on.
Oh yeah, like Batman, it's gonna keep, it'll keep going and keep going.
As
As long
long
as it's good, I'm here for it.
That's the way I look at it. I'm like, as long as there's people still interested, as long as it's worthwhile and it's good. And if it all went away, you know what? I have great memories. I can still listen to the music and enjoy every second of it. And going back 50 years. And I can remember all the different events through,
Mm.
you know, being there. And that was it's a little bit of a plus being older, because I do remember I remember, God, I remember it was like yesterday when I found out Peter Criss wasn't in Kiss anymore. I was like, oh,
Oh,
me and my brother were like, what?
it's
And of course,
impossible.
it was Peter Criss leaves
Chris quits
Kiss,
Kiss. Yeah,
because
yeah.
there was no social media, there was no nothing. But like, what, why would you leave? Why would you leave? What are you, crazy?
Mhm.
I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember seeing Eric Carr on the cover of People magazine. I remember saying, so
How was
this new
that?
guy? I was like, wow. And
Yeah.
the same thing, like when Ace left, I remember seeing Vinnie Vincent. I'm like, who's the guy with the cross on his face? Who's this now? Because there was no social media. I mean, we used to buy magazines and stuff like that, but
Hmm.
you didn't get stuff like this. There was no MTV until '83 to tell you what all this stuff was happening. So you just go there and you'd be like, who's this guy now?
You get a magazine. Well, okay, they changed this. So how late was it until you found out about Vinnie Vincent? Was it 82, 83?
It was it had to be right between. It was probably right before Look It Up.
Okay.
because I did miss the unveiling on MTV because I don't remember even hearing about it until after the fact.
Okay.
You're like, oh, did you watch Kiss on MTV? I said no. I said what because they had, you remember that was MTV's infancy, so they only had they had I Love It Loud on there, and I remember seeing that video all the time. I said, no, I
Hmm.
saw the video. They're like, no, they took their makeup off. I'm like, what? Because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't see it till a while after that.
Yeah.
And that's when I remember seeing Vinnie Vincent for the first time. I think it was a record store that I used to go to, like a small mom and pop shop, which is actually still there, believe it or not. It's like one of the oldest record stores in the country. So anytime I'm
Wow.
in that area, I stop in there just for, old time's sake. And I remember going up there, and that's when I saw. I'm like, "Who was the guy with the thing? Who is this now? That's not Ace Frehley."
Yeah.
Automatically. So it was just weird seeing that. I remember because I missed the unveiling of their actual faces. I mean, I remember seeing National Enquirer things all the time as a kid. Because I'll be at the supermarket with my mom or something, and I'd see Kiss something. I'll quick thumb through it, and 99% of the time, it wasn't the right person, or it was like a picture of Ace, and they say that was Gene. It was always backwards.
Mm. Yep.
It was always those. So I remember when they took the makeup off and the new album was coming out, which was Lick It Up. And I remember the first time I saw them was in that record store, going there to get the new album, Lick It Up, and I held it up, and I'm like, that's what they look like. I'm like,
This
wow.
is
It was like I still remember like picking up, looking at it, like, wow, holy crap, this is what they look like for real this time.
for real. Exactly. Yeah. No, I had a very similar experience with, like I said, when Eric and Tommy took over, because the first time I ever watched Kiss live on TV was when they were performing on American Bandstand for the Dick Clark 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And we watched that whole performance, because of course Kiss is going to be last. When's Kiss going to be on? When's Kiss going to be on? And then,
Yep.
Kiss comes out, and I'm like, let's see, in '02 I would have been maybe 7. So you're still kind of dumb, but you're not dumb when you're 7. So I'm looking and I'm like, that's the Catman and the Spaceman, but that's not. I don't think that's Peter and Ace.
Mm-hmm.
But you only have 3 minutes, one song to enjoy it. There's no DVR, you can't rewind. There's no YouTube, you can't rewatch it. So you're like, forget it. We're just going to watch it and enjoy it. And I still love that performance, but I didn't know at the time that I had my suspicions, but I didn't know that that was Tommy and Eric. And then again in '03, they do the Kiss Alive 4, the Symphony Orchestra, and it says Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Tommy Thayer, Peter Criss. I'm like, okay, so that's that guy. But
Mm-hmm.
was that Peter? That must have been, and you go back and forth. But yeah, I didn't even know that Peter had taken over for the Catman for the Australian and Japanese legs of the farewell tour until I was probably in middle school, like around '08. Because now I'm on the internet, they're doing a live 35. Kiss is suddenly back in the mainstream, and I'm seeing this picture of Eric Singer with his makeup on for the first time. That classic image of him with the the white background. It was the insert they used for the tour book, and I'm like, wait, Eric Singer '01 as the Catman? There's no way. Peter Criss was the Catman, and so you go on this big learning, and that's what I love about History is that you're just constantly learning stuff, figuring stuff out, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper and deeper. So yeah, that was always one fun memory. It's like, even because I was still around, before social media and all that, and you still had to kind of like scratch your head and think. It wasn't even until like '03 when I started even considering that wasn't Peter and Ace on Psycho Circus. Because when you're 3 years old and you hear Psycho Circus, you're just thinking, okay, it's Psycho Circus. It says Gene, Paul, Peter, and Ace. Those are their faces in the front, so that must be who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Only years later did I find out. I was like, I don't know if that's Peter Criss. That must be Eric Singer, because that was my logic at the time. Well, it can't be Eric Carr, so they must be using Eric
Yeah.
Singer. Turns out it was, Kevin Valentine. Well, I didn't know who Kevin Valentine was, so yeah, it's always fun with Kiss, learning different things and just enriching yourself with history.
My first time seeing them on TV, believe it or not, was I caught the tail end of the Poland Halloween special.
Did you really?
Not the whole thing, but the
Nice.
tail end, and then I didn't see it again for till years later because they never ever replayed it. I bought a
No,
bootleg copy of it back in the '80s because they only played it once. But the tail
that's
end of that,
crazy.
yeah,
That's something I don't think about. If you didn't watch it, that was it.
that was it. They
That was
didn't
it.
replay it.
There
I
was
remember
there was
me
no
and my brother.
replays. There was no YouTube. No
Nope,
nothing.
you missed
That's
it. That was
crazy.
good. We stayed up to watch them on Don Kirshner. I remember watching them on Don Kirshner's rock concert.
Oh,
Um, I remember seeing them on what the hell was it, 2020? that TV show 2020. I remember that because my mother used to watch it all the time. My parents used to watch it because it was a new show. They're like, I think Kiss is going to be on. I'm like, really? On why are they going to be on 2020? Yes, and so I watched that. I remember that. I remember seeing them on how was it, American Music Awards? We saw the American Music Awards because remember it was an event. If you knew Kiss was going to be on, they were never on. They were never on the radio. Like
Right.
same thing like with Bill Starkey. If my brother was here, he'll tell you how we used to call a radio station all the time. Like, but play Kiss. Nope, never played Kiss.
Wow.
The New York area, which was their hometown, never played Kiss.
Wow. We got lucky. Of course, I grew up, in the 2000s, but we had a great local rock station for a while that you would get some crazy stuff. I mean, they would of course play, you would get, Beth and Rock and Roll Night Studio, Rock and Roll Night Live in Detroit Rock City. But there was one time where I was probably in high school on the way to school, and on the bus they had played the radio, and I'm like, am I hearing Reason to Live right now on local rock radio? That's absolutely crazy. So they were pretty cool. You would get some crazy stuff. When Kiss put out Marty Delilah, they would play the new Kiss song, Hell or Hallelujah from Monster. They were really good at, promoting the upcoming album. So luckily, I got lucky with the local radio station. But now they just play like Journey and stuff, which is fine. But it's not, I miss the Guns N' Roses stuff that they used to play. But I got lucky growing up with local rock around here. They were pretty good supporters of Kiss. But man, I couldn't imagine being back in the day. You're just like, come on, people, get with it. Play some Kiss.
Yeah, I remember, our parents letting us use the phone and would dial in the radio station and we're like, play, and they never ever do I remember them once playing Kiss. It was just like, nope, not gonna. It's funny. It's just recently. So I do like IT work. So I was doing sometimes when I'm doing work, I'll have my, I put like I'll go on YouTube like classic rock playlist, just something to put on in the background. And I have my little Bose speaker, and I was sort of on the other side of the floor, and I'm working with another guy. And all of a sudden, and I'm like, "What's the matter?" I'm like, I go, he's like, what is this? What's on the radio? I go, it's Mr. Speed from Kiss.
Oh.
And it was just like some random classic rock. It was just like all like, typical stuff like Pink Floyd, The Who, The Stones. In the middle of all of a sudden, I'm like, why did you get Mr. Speed and put that on there? I was like, that's hysterical.
What a jewel in the rough.
Made my day. I'm like, whoever made this playlist, kudos to you.
Respect.
One of my favorite Kiss songs.
Absolutely. That's fantastic.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We're hitting like a little over an hour. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I appreciate you coming on. And congratulations. I'm looking forward to seeing what's going on with the museum. I'm looking forward to seeing you do the blogs where you're out there doing like American Picker with Kiss.
Yeah.
Kiss Pickers.
Yeah.
Kiss Pickers.
Kiss Pickers, yeah. I want to come up with I want to try and do a cool name and do a cool thing with it. But yeah, it's a TV show I kind of want to do. So hopefully it works out the way I want to. I'm going to do my best. But yeah, I got to focus on starting the business back up first. That's my next big thing. And I really want to thank you for having me on. It's been great chatting with you. This was a very nice, normal, conversation. So you're really good at what you do. I like this show and I like what you do. So thank you for having me on.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on. I'll still be watching the podcast. And next time I stop at a red light, I'll be sure to comment because like I said, I'm usually listening to it when I'm driving around.
Well, as long as you stay safe, don't let no cops see you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, I'll do that. And if now when you get some free time down the road, if you ever I come up with some subjects, if you ever want to come back on, I'd love to have you back on, and we'll go from there. So until everybody that's watching this, tell them where they should go to find everything for Kiss Army Things.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so we're the Kiss Army Things podcast, but we're only on YouTube. I don't mess with Spotify. I don't mess with iTunes. I only mess with YouTube. YouTube is the present. YouTube is the future. YouTube's gonna outlive us all. So subscribe to Kiss Army Things on YouTube, and you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and definitely keep up with us on kissmuseum.com, which is going to be relaunching hopefully later this month, sometime this summer. But yeah, check us out on YouTube for our Kiss Army Things podcast. We also have some other great fun videos, Kiss themed videos that you guys might like. So yeah, if you're in the Kiss Army, definitely check out Kiss Army Things. If you're watching this show, definitely check out ours. I think you'll like it. So thank you for having me on. It's been really great.
Awesome. And as Xander's talking about that, after I edit this, obviously I'll have all the links here and everybody go check it out. You'll be glad you did it. It's great. He's got a great rapport. Especially, it's funny when I first started watching it with. I remember seeing some with your brother. I guess some of the older ones, and then And then I started listening and listening, and I didn't realize till like maybe 5 or 6 episodes in that was your wife. I'm like, that's cool as hell. My wife would never come and do anything like that. That's awesome that she does the show with you. She knows all this stuff about Kiss and does all this stuff. My wife is just like, yeah, go do your podcast stuff. Go down here.
Yeah, well, I'm very blessed. When we started dating, and she was into the Beatles, I'm into Kiss, and so we were both into classic rock, and so I wasn't as well versed in the Beatles, and she wasn't really as well versed in Kiss, and together we've kind of passed that off onto one another, and yeah, she's been a real big help on the show, and she's really great, and I definitely owe her a lot of thanks and support for her putting up with me and my Kiss shenanigans, and wanting to go see all the tours and transform the garage into the Kiss museum, and do all this stuff. So I'm very blessed. She's great.
Yeah, my wife, she won't come on camera. She won't talk about any of the stuff. It's not her thing. My wife is into horses. She has a horse. So this is not her. This is not her thing. So, but hey, look at the room I have down here, and she puts up with this. So I guess I can't complain.
I was gonna say, yeah, absolutely. Love is love. You'll sacrifice something.
Exactly. All right. So everybody, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Make sure you go check out Kiss Army things and the Kiss Museum, especially when it gets back up and running, everybody. So start saving your money now.
That's right. Yep.
Awesome.
Get your credit cards out. Get your Kiss wallets out.
Exactly. Thanks so much. Take care.